Did he then turn a blind eye to it because money was coming in? Or did he not know? In which case, the question is, why didn't he know? Because he must be advised on these matters. And I think that when the King or the Prince of Wales meets somebody in that sort of environment, that kind of very cosy environment, there ought to have been a check done. And I'm sure there was a check done. And Charles, I suspect, said, I'm not paying attention to that because the man's giving me money. That's what I think would have happened in this particular case. But, you know, he really needs to avoid looking like a mafia boss, doesn't he, dealing with these sorts of people? But time and again, he does it.
Yeah, mafia. It does. You're right. Yeah, the black spider letters, the spider in the middle. But also, there's something more sinister to this, because we've heard today about the Home Office considering the proscribing Palestine Action, which is the non-violent direct action group. I mean, they have attacked and smashed up some of the windows of Barclays Bank here in Bristol, I know, but they've also been spraying paint onto military aircraft. Murdoch's empire has been calling for them to be shot, and now we're hearing that the Home Office is considering turning them into a terrorist organisation, Norman.
Well, I don't agree with that course of action at all. And I have to say that my experience of politics over many, many years has been that the Labour Party cannot be trusted with civil liberties in this country. I saw that when they were in government, when they wanted 90 days without detention without trial. They wanted ID cards. They're very cavalier when it comes to individual liberties, the Labour Party. And that's one of the things that actually, curious enough, when the coalition came along, the Tories and Lib Dems were in a closer position than we were with Labour. But this reaction to calling these people terrorists, I think, we'll see what the Home Secretary says in terms of evidence. But, you know, my view is that if you undertake action like spraying planes or breaking windows, that is criminal damage. It's an offence. The people who do it should be charged, and they should be charged with criminal damage. But it's not terrorism. Terrorism is threatening the lives of individual citizens, and they're not doing that, as far as I can tell. And, you know, I have to ask a question. If the pro-Israeli lobby in this country was going around spraying planes, would they be classed as a terrorist organisation? You have to ask yourself, the same day as the Home Secretary is apparently planning to make this not a terrorist organisation, no doubt tens of people again are being killed by Israeli soldiers in Gaza to try and access food. You know, which ones are the terrorists of those two groups?
Yeah, and the Israelis are actually, they're sitting in tanks, using tank machine guns, which seems a little bit over the top for starving people trying to get something to eat. But
I think they're using target practice. I think they don't care. They're using it as target practice.
Well, I mean,
it's really shocking what the Israelis are doing in Gaza. And I think there's been a failure of all political parties in this country to stand up to what is appalling illegal activity, war crimes, and probably genocide.
The SNP have, though, haven't they?
Well, they have a bit, and so the Lib Dems a bit, but it's not gone far enough.
Look, there's another side to the royal story, and that is the very draconian actions, and it relates in a way to the Palestine Action one, Norman, about for example, at the coronation. We've also seen other events in London where the king is appearing. There are peaceful protesters turn up with placards, and as soon as they turn up, as soon as they get out of their minibus or whatever, they are arrested and jailed. I mean, before they're even allowed to stand there and shout with a megaphone that we want to end the monarchy, or just wave a placard. Now, there are literally tens of people now who've been arrested in this way for actually committing no crime at all.
Yes, I have been, although I think the police have backed off a bit from that because, for example, I don't think there were, I stand to be corrected, I don't think there were arrests at the Trooping the Colour demonstration the other day. And I think the embarrassment that's come to the police from some of the arrests they've made have caused them to back off a bit. I mean, you ended up with situations where I think it was in Edinburgh, people were told if they write "Not My King" on a piece of paper and hold it up, they were going to get arrested. And they were holding up blank pieces of paper, which is what happens in Xi Jinping's China, which is not a great sight, is it, for this country, the home of democracy? So I think we do have to look at the fact that there's been double standards applied. And people have got perfect right to protest. There was somebody in Oxford a couple of years ago who was when the proclamation came that Charles is now king, proclamation in Oxford, and he shouted out, who elected him? He was immediately pulled away by police and charged. And actually, the monarchists who were there in the public, watching and obviously supporting the proclamation, saying to the police, well, hang on a minute, this guy's entitled to his view, why are you arresting him? So not even monarchists were supporting the way he was being treated. And of course, he subsequently got compensation for the police for wrongful arrest. But, you know, that's a situation we have in this country, that the police are showing a double standard. Depending on what you're protesting against, they react in a different way. And that's completely wrong. They should simply be enforcing the law. And it's not illegal, as you said, to stand up there and protest against something you don't like in this country.
Yeah, especially when you're not actually even doing anything. You're just standing there with a placard. You're not encouraging any criminal activity. You're just urging for political change. But I wonder also if there has been some change in the country since the death of Queen Elizabeth, because King Charles does seem to be much more free with his political views. And also, of course, people then start to wonder just how much power does the royal family really have? Because there's quite a lot of patronage, of course, of all sorts of trusts and charities around the place. But more importantly, when you get police, army, civil servants, judges, they are all royal appointees. So, I mean, if you've got a weak government and a weak prime minister, surely the royal family actually can start, you know, using a bit of muscle to appoint the people it wants to these very important jobs.
Well, they don't appoint them, Tony. I mean, they may be on paper appointed by the royals, but some of them, but they are effectively prime ministerial recommendations in nearly all cases. So I would exempt the royals from that particular criticism.
Well, yes, but one of the things I've heard, Norman, is that the royal family will suggest to ministers possibly through these black spider letters that we're not allowed to know about, we would prefer to see X, Y, and Z appointed.
Well, they might do that. I don't know. But ultimately, that's a matter for the Prime Minister of the day and the Cabinet to decide whether they pay attention to that or not. I would be surprised if that was very, very extensive. I mean, the royals do influence things behind the scenes quite significantly, including through the disgraceful concept of King's consent, and Prince of Wales' consent, whereby those two people are allowed to see draft legislation before Parliament does. And when it affects their personal and private interests, and make changes or lobby for changes to the draft law as it would affect them personally before MPs even know about it. Now that's a disgrace. That happens. It's happened thousands of times since 1952. And when you say Charles is political, of course Charles has got political views. As it happens, I happen to agree with some of his political views, which is not the point. However, they need to be completely non-political.